Good evening, folks. How we doing today? We in for a exciting event tonight. Very good information we're going to pass on to it. We have Ms. Sonia back, and we're going to talk about some new stuff coming up. May 22nd, I want y'all to mark your calendars right now. May 22nd is going to be the day that you want to make sure you register for it. And go through the whole scenario. We're going to talk about that as well, but we're gonna get back on some of this housing topics we have, and we know about our homeless. We know about all the struggles we're going through. We're going to talk about some initiatives. We just have to get back to the basics. We just got to let the folks know that we're working towards something. It don't seem like immediate right now, but it's coming through as we start to discuss things that happen in the community, legislative, but May 22nd, Day of Housing. We really excited about it. It's going to be a great day. If you haven't signed up, we're going to provide that information. But this Day of Housing gives us an opportunity that we can go out here and start discussing real issues with some of our state representatives, some of the folks that can help us make the decision. Some of the folks me and you voted for, that can have a say so and let them know that, hey, this is what's happening. So we're gonna introduce Miss Starr again, and she can give a brief introduction about what she does, and then we're gonna jump into some questions because we might have some questions that come out, and we want to make sure that y'all get the information for register. So, Miss Starr, if you can let them know a little bit what you do, who you work for, and what's our goal?
Thank you so much for having me back. I'm really excited. My name is Sonia Starr, and I'm the Policy Director at Housing Alliance Delaware. What I do in my department is mostly do a lot of community education about the housing crisis, the homelessness crisis, how they're interrelated, and data-driven solutions to solving them. I do that with people like you. I do that with community members across the state, but I also do that with elected officials. And I give people opportunities to talk to their elected officials about what's going on and making sure that they know what we expect of them and what we need of them.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's a whole lot. And a lot of our folks don't know who your representative is, your state representative. And so this event will give you a chance to even meet them if you never met them. So you can say, hey, this is who I voted for. I never seen you in person, but now it's good to have a conversation, and have a good conversation and letting them know that, hey, this is what we see, enlighten them about some of the things that's happening in your community, happening in your neighborhood, some things you'd like to see change. And that's what we're going to talk about. But we're going to get to this first question here that I have. The new initiatives for the Housing Alliance. Tell us what we're talking about here, Ms. Sonia.
Right. So there are a lot of bills that just were filed. Two of them were filed last week. One literally was filed today. So this is a lot of stuff hot off the press. The first category, the first three are all about eviction prevention. The last one is about the Homeless Bill of Rights. So one of the bills that we're really excited about and hope passes is SB 115. So right now in Delaware, and maybe your viewers all know this already, but I didn't until I started getting into this. A landlord has to give you an eviction, what's called an eviction filing, and then they take you to court. And then if you lose in court, then you get evicted. But if you win in court, nothing, you in theory don't get evicted. But an eviction filing stays on your record forever, for your whole life. So I could have been gone to court, won my court case. My landlord was wrong, but because I had an eviction filing, every landlord that I go to rent an apartment from for the rest of my life will see eviction filing, and they won't rent to me. Or it could be that I just screwed up. People learn the hard way sometimes. And I made a mistake. I didn't pay my rent. I got angry and put a hole in the wall. Whatever it is, I screwed up. I got evicted, right? But why 10 years from now, when I've learned my lesson, am I still paying for that mistake I made 10 years ago, right? So this law says, SB 115 says that in 5 years, if you've made your landlord whole, like you don't owe any landlords any money, you haven't had any problems in 5 years, your eviction record gets expunged.
Wow.
Start over again. And it's really important because people are finding they can't find new apartments because they have an eviction filing. So that's one of the ones we're advocating for. The other one is called SB 116. It's called Pay to Stay. What it means is I just talked to this woman yesterday, and she was describing how this actually happened to her. She owed her landlord, I don't remember what it was, but she paid 2/3 of it, right? So she paid most of it on time, but she needed a 10-day break until she got paid to pay the rest of it. She paid the rest of it 10 days late. That's it. But she paid 2/3 on time. The landlord took the final third and then went to her and said, well, I might evict you anyways because you were late. And she's
Wow.
like, I made you whole. I paid everything. Why are you about to evict me? So this law says that if you made the landlord whole, if the court gives you a fee because you're late, and the only thing you did wrong is pay late, but then you paid before eviction, they can't evict you. And that's really important. It gives the landlord the money and it gets the tenant the housing. And the last one doesn't sound like it's eviction protection, but it really is. Um, in the field, they call them ADUs, accessory dwelling units. When I was a kid, we used to call them in-law suite or grand.
Oh yeah, yeah. Right.
Like you take your garage and make it into a one-bedroom
Right.
efficiency apartment, or if you have property, you put in,
Mhm.
something there small. It's a small little thing, one bedroom at most, maybe an efficiency apartment. In Delaware, there's a whole lot of municipalities that won't let you build them. They just won't. And we're saying, why not? It doesn't cost the state any money because the property owner builds it, right? They pay for it. It could provide a caretaker, family member could be living there. It could be that you need some rent because you're not making your mortgage anymore. Where if somebody would pay rent, you can make your mortgage and stay housed, right? And it provides another inexpensive housing for people who need housing. So this law, SB 87 says that there's no municipality that can stop ADUs from being built in their municipality. So those are the three eviction prevention ones we're doing. And then the second one is just been filed today. HB 135 has been in the past called the Homeless Bill of Rights. This one says that if you're not breaking the law, so you're not doing anything illegal, you don't have a roof over your head, you're not blocking traffic, you're not standing in the middle of the road, you're not blocking somebody from going into a restaurant or a store, why can't you stand, sit, or lie down in public space? Right? When did it become a crime to be homeless? If you're not hurting anyone, you're not doing anything wrong, and you don't have a roof over your head, why can't you be there on the park bench? Or why can't you be there on the bus stop, on the bench, right? You're not hurting anyone. It also says, and this is really important, that one of the biggest problems that happen when police move people experiencing homelessness from one corner to the other is they take away or they throw away their things because people can't get them together fast enough. And people lose medicine that they can't afford to replace. They lose ID and they can't get anything in life without ID.
Right.
And so this says you can't do that. You have to give them a locker or something so they can have a place for their things. So those are the bills that we're currently working on right now. There'll be others by May 22nd for Day for Housing, but those are the ones that have been introduced so far.
Yeah, this eviction expungement, I mean, I think that's great. It's a forgivable offense, it looks like, once you been doing this, because everybody has a hard time. We fall on hard times and stuff for it. And I didn't know that it stays on their lifetime, for it. And that's how they evaluate you when you go get your next place. But so you said that we had to wait 10 years and then you can expunge it, or if
5. The bill says 5.
5
years.
5
But the
years.
bill hasn't passed yet. We got to get it passed.
Oh, okay, yeah, for it and stuff. And it's a favorable bill. I see the benefit in it for those tenants, and pay to stay, which is something good. I know people are always short, and as everybody know, our employment situation, and we were just talking about our employment situation, is not always the best. And for it and stuff, that we're going to have some jobs that might cut us from full-time to part-time. We might not have those funds. We might not have a need or a way to borrow those until we can get paid, because payday loans and all them other places, they just ridiculous. They gonna take your money and then put you in a worse situation than you were already in. So I mean, this would be something good to have, and for our landlords out there and everything, these are bills. We're not talking about people that's abusing the system. We're talking about people that's making a genuine concern, finding some place to live. Not making this a personal habit for the last 3 years. Because then we got a budget issue. If you
We're
can't
talking about people who made mistakes and deserve a second chance.
dance.
And for pay to stay, it could be my car broke down and I needed to fix my car because otherwise I can't get to work and I lose my job. Or it could be that I had a hospital bill that I needed to pay or meds that my insurance didn't cover, right? It could be that it's something unexpected. It doesn't mean I went out and partied last night, right?
Right. And that's something good that comes around. But this ADU, I think that's a good bill for it, and for living, and that's another alternative, for having space. For we can see the benefit of that, where you can at least get somebody from being out on the street and into someplace comfortable here for it. But also, we talked about that homeless bill of rights. Where do our homeless people really go? What do they really do? And Ms. Starr, you can tell you, because y'all probably deal with them calling in, and I mean, what do they do? You can provide some temporary housing, but after that, what happens?
So sometimes we could provide some temporary housing, but there's a shortage of temporary housing. So unfortunately, all too often they call and they get on our list and we get to them as soon as we can. And we're not doing it to be mean. We're just not magicians. We can't make beds appear that don't exist. There's just not enough housing out there. Like you need to get on every list that there is out there and do as much work, but it's like looking for a full-time job, finding low-income housing right now. There just is not enough affordable housing out there. We need to build more.
So tell me, if somebody wants temporary housing, if somebody has a rental, can they make that temporary housing? How would they sign up if they wanted to do that, maybe?
You mean if I'm a landlord and I decided I want to rent out one of my apartments for low-income housing? Well, you know what? You all have my email address. If somebody has an apartment like that, email me and remind me why you're emailing me. Tell me what you have, and the more details you get me, better. I won't be able to give you the answers, but I can put you in touch with the people that can, and it's easier for me to do it that way because it might be, if you want a particular kind of housing, I might put you in touch with one person. It depends where you're located. Depends if it's a room in your house or an apartment. The more you tell me, the more I can make sure you get to the right person. And I'd be happy to do that.
Oh, that'd be perfect. Y'all see the email going, Sonia Starr at housingalliancede.org. If y'all have some places out there and it's affordable, send a message over it so she can be able to accommodate, because it can be a win-win situation. You have somebody that, if you have an empty spot and it's been empty for a while and stuff, and it's in a good condition and everything, and somebody can live there in peace, why not rent it out for it, get that money, and then you'll be able to go to, making sure that your place is full, because we have
especially, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I apologize. I just was going to say, especially if a landlord is willing to take what's called housing choice vouchers, because there's not enough landlords that will take them, and they're guaranteed money from the government. So the government will help subsidize so if I make, let's say, $15 an hour, making this up, the numbers aren't exactly right, but it's close. If I make $15 an hour and I can't afford an apartment, the government might pay half of it and my salary would pay the other half, right? But people don't take them as much as they should. So if you are willing to take housing choice vouchers, tell me that in the email, because that's even a different person that I'd be glad to put you in touch with.
Oh, that's awesome. So hey, that's already money that's all set
Mhm.
aside, or it's working for
Mhm.
the landlord, so it can be able to do it. And it's necessary. Our next question comes, what is the connection between the lack of affordable housing and homelessness? If you can
Right.
elaborate on that.
So there were two really important studies that were done, one by the Pew study and one by the Harvard University, and they
Mhm.
both came out with exactly the same finding. They tested these big cities across the country, bigger than the state of Delaware, like the Houstons, Minneapolis, New York, LA's, the big cities. They tested them for substance abuse, alcoholism, unemployment, all kinds of reasons why they have a high homeless rate of homelessness or a very low rate of homelessness to figure out what was the common denominator. The only common denominator they found in all of the things they studied was places that have a lot of homeless do not have a lot of affordable housing. They just don't have enough. And places where they have a low number of homelessness, they have invested a lot of money in building more affordable housing. So the truth of the matter is that many people simply become homeless because they're low income and there's not enough housing for low income folk. So, for example, the new data just came out. If
Mhm.
somebody's making 30% of AMI, which is more or less minimum wage or lower, there's only 41 affordable available houses out there for every 100 families that need one. So
Wow.
41 for every 100. It's, Johnny, you played musical chairs when you were a kid, right?
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Right.
So you know how the game is, right? You put one less chair in the middle than people going around, right?
Yeah.
Music starts, everybody's moving around, doing their thing, and then the music stops and they start pushing everybody out of the way to get a chair, right? It's
Right.
rigged. Somebody loses. Well, we're doing that with people's housing. There's not enough housing. And we're saying when the music stops and everybody goes scrambling, we're blaming people because they got pushed out of the way. They don't speak English so good. They're too old. They're disabled. They couldn't get the forms in their computer. Their Wi-Fi stopped. They were late. Whatever it is, the reality is it's because there isn't enough housing. And if we want to solve the homelessness crisis, we have to start solve the affordable housing crisis.
Yeah, and that's amazing that we have that. I know that right now, um, for our landlords, they can get more money, for what they feel, and we get that, and we're not asking you to lose money, uh,
Mhm.
but we're asking you to consider, if you have a 4 unit, why not one
Mhm.
unit, you make for that, so we can at least kind of help balance that type of situation out, and see what that works for. But it's a wonderful idea that if we can eliminate the homelessness, and these people on the street and trying to find some place to sleep, as we talked about that homeless bill, people sleep at the bus stops on the benches. It's better than the ground.
Mhm.
you know, for it and stuff. So, I know it's uncomfortable for people that take the bus. If you go to the bus early in the morning, you see somebody there, you probably want to sit down until that bus comes because you'll be standing for a while. But we trying to find avenues to get that done. And as you see in the review here, and what is that PEW study? Can you break that down, that acronym for us?
Oh, that's a test. I only heard people ever call it the Pew. That's a good question. What does the Pew stand for? Hold
Yeah,
on, let me ask double Dr. Google.
right.
Um, Hold on. The Pew stands for the Pew. It's called the Pew Research Center. I don't know what Pew stands for,
Hmm. So
but it's a major research center that does research on all kinds of things. It's nonpartisan, doesn't get into politics, and it really looks at the causes of things and how to solve problems.
wow, wow, and that's amazing. And that's what we need out here, folks. That type of research gives us understanding of where we're at, what situation we're in, and gives you the knowledge you need to make an informed decision. Because sometimes we think people choose to be homeless. Some people say, "Oh man, they just don't want to work." Sometimes they do want to work, but it's just not enough money to support what they're doing if they have a family. For it and stuff. And And Ms. Starr, you probably know that the minimum wage doesn't even make it. you know.
Not even close. They say that for somebody in Delaware to be able to rent a one-bedroom apartment, they have to work at minimum wage 70 hours a week.
Jesus.
And then they wonder why their kids are left home alone,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, if you have to work 70 hours a week to put a roof over your kid's head, and it's legal, your boss didn't do anything wrong,
Right.
right? I don't know how people do it. I
Right.
mean, it just,
That's a lot.
I don't know how people do it. And, it's important for me just to list, I want to list some of the kinds of jobs we're talking. They're not all $15 an hour, but they're under they don't make enough with what they make to get a one bedroom in Delaware. So the kind of people we're talking about are poultry workers, which we have a lot of down south in Sussex and Kent, our restaurant workers, our home health care workers, our senior citizens, our child care workers, our janitors, our landscape workers, our nursing assistants, our office workers, our apprentices in the trades, our teachers' aides. Those are really crucial, like, occupations that people are doing good things that support our lives, and we don't pay them enough to get them housing. Shame on us.
Yeah, yeah, we have to do something because they're really caring for the elderly. When we go out and eat, helping us serve, have a nice meal when we go out and stuff. So, I always encourage folks when you're out to eat and doing those things, tip those folks.
Mhm.
Let's make a decent tip for them because they're probably making a little less than you know
Minimum wage.
minimum
Mhm.
wage out here, and they have to live too.
Mhm.
For it, we want to make sure that we don't create an environment that's a
Mhm.
hazard to someone else. And the next question we have is, what is the data about how many affordable housing units there is in Delaware for low income folks? For
Right. So it's different for different income groups, right? And what the data shows, and I'll tell you the actual numbers in a second, the more money you make, the more housing there is,
mm,
right? So if you're the lowest income people at 30% AMI and below, there's only 41 affordable available units per 100 people who want one.
wow.
If you make 30 to 50% AMI, there's only 57 available and affordable. 57 is better than 41, but it's not 100. If you
Mm-hmm.
make between 50 and 80% AMI, there's 91 available and affordable homes. You
Mm,
don't get to enough homes until you make 100% of AMI. So we as a society have decided the more money you make, the better, the more housing you get to choose from. And the
mm-hmm.
less money you make, you just don't deserve real housing because we don't build it for you.
Wow.
And that's a problem, right? That's not, I'm being, that's
Mhm.
not an okay thing to have decided. But society made that decision by when we decided to build, mostly in Delaware, what is built is single unattached homes with nice sized lots, right? That's almost everywhere you go. That's the largest number of permits. Well, no offense. Why do we need all these suburban homes? There's nothing wrong with twins or, 5 floor apartment buildings. It doesn't have to be a New York City,
All
150
right.
floor building.
All
It could
right.
be 5 floors, 6 floor
Mhm.
building with, 5 apartments on each floor. Why not?
Right.
We have the need for it. So it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I grew up in New York, and we remember the projects and
Mhm.
those. I mean, you were so close to next door, and if the elevator broke, it was man, a big ordeal, to
Mhm.
happen. And you were like, wow, what's going on here? But we're back in that element now where our folks, our baseline workers, they're out here struggling and trying to make it, working 2 and 3 jobs to get it, and now we don't have affordable homes for us. And I know, and tell me, Mister, you can tell me, it's probably certain cities that have the majority of them. I would say like Wilmington, Dover, Seaford, cities like that would have the bigger population of those affordable homes. for it.
They've built the most in Seaford, Laurel, Dover, Wilmington, Georgetown. Those are places where we've built the most. But the problem is, like, we keep depending on these municipalities to solve the problem for the whole state. And then we wonder why. So, like in East Sussex, that's a really good example. We know in East Sussex, restaurants are closing earlier, stores are closing earlier because they can't find minimum wage workers to work their stores. So they close earlier and earlier. Well, why would somebody work there if they can't live there? And the distance you have to travel, there's no public transportation from West Sussex to East Sussex. You're paying a fortune in transportation costs. Why would you do that if you have another choice, right?
Right,
We can't depend on only these big cities to solve the problem. All of Delaware has to be part of the
right,
solution.
right. And without transportation, Delaware is kind of limited when you get
Mhm.
down south. We don't have that access like we have up there in Newcastle County for our bus service. Especially on weekends where a lot of folks, that's when they're out. That's when
Mhm.
they're out eating, they're shopping, they're having a great time for it. So, I want to make a call out there to any landlords, any owners, this affordable housing, wherever you might be. Let's give it a try. Let's see if we can accommodate and put something out there in motion that will help us get rid of this or lower the numbers to where we can try to zero it out, each time, because as we do one or two, it improves the whole situation a lot better than where we're at today. And it's good. Some cities don't want it, and we get it. You want that privacy, and you want that piece sectioned off, for that, and we get that. But we have a lot of cities out here that we can see if we can get some affordable housing in there. And if you see the restaurants going out of business, you got to ask yourself the question. Go ahead, Miss Star. You have something you're gonna say?
I was going to say, Johnny, you're a lot nicer than I am. Um, I don't think there's any reason for any municipality not to be part of the solution.
Right.
And I don't mean that meanly. I don't mean that they need to be I don't want any of the horror stories of what you see on TV. But everybody who lives paycheck to paycheck isn't the person on TV. And
Hmm.
if we all don't say we care about what our state is doing and making it better, it's not going to get better. Like, that's just as simple as that. I don't think there's a reason to opt out. I think we all have to say, this is the time we all have to opt in.
Hmm. And yeah, welcome Daniel. He came through for it, and it's just a good gesture. So we're out here talking about finding ways to and housing and alleviate homeless. We got that Sunday breakfast mission. That do a great job for for most of our homeless folks that's in that area and stuff, and providing meals and clothing and different stuff, and different organizations also helping to support that, and we appreciate that. But the key is that if we can find another door that we can put someone in to where they outside of that, we want to open that situation up. Any investors out there, you have some homes that probably haven't had the best situation. And I want to make this point. Every situation is not perfect. We know that you might have some bad tenants and everything. Let's not put everybody in a bag or a bucket, you know.
Mhm. No, it's
But,
true.
but go out here and see if we can provide something, for that. I think the Hope Center does a great job out there by having that. I think that's temporary housing in that Hope
Mhm.
Center.
Yep. Hope centers, emergency housing. I mean, there's a lot of places all across the state that do. You've mentioned two of the, bigger ones. There's also Friendship House. There's also the People's Place in Dover. There's also the pallet shelters in Georgetown. There's Loving. There's a whole lot of shelters all across the state. There's the interfaith ministries that do a good job. There's no just one place that does it. All the Code Purples do a great job as well.
lost me there for a second. Sorry about that. But we want to increase that. Maybe build not build, but have something almost like the Hope Center in Kent County, Sussex. That might prevent some of our homelessness and stuff. We see abandoned houses that probably can be fixed up.
Or office buildings, right? There's not everybody's returning back to the office. There are buildings and also big box stores, the big box stores, some of them are empty. They can be converted into low income housing, really affordable housing, really easy, right?
Hmm.
Maybe people will have a shared kitchen, but then they
Hmm.
would have their own room, or maybe they would have a small efficiency apartment with a kitchenette or something like that. But why not take those spaces that we're not using anymore in the way it was originally intended and convert them into affordable housing?
And that's awesome to do. So I'm reaching out to any investors out there, anyone thinking about being investors, landlords, or whatever. If you see some of these housing and you're thinking about getting into the game of being a landlord, tenant, reach out. I'll be willing to help. Find a way for you to invest in it to get financing or something, so we can build up those homes and stuff. And they're not homeless no more. They're a brand new look. They're a good side. They're a good eye out there. It's not like a sore
Mhm.
eye out there in the community that we see that we do. So we're going to jump on the question now. Have we ever seen any progress in the homeless population? I know we always talk about what it's doing, but is it improving? Is it getting worse? Or where we at?
Getting worse. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, right? We just did the point in time count. That's one night every year when everywhere around the country, and the last people do it a different night, but it has to be the last week of January. Go out and they count how many people are living in shelters, emergency shelters, or on the streets. We just did it the last week of January. The numbers just came out. There are 16% more people experiencing homelessness in 2025 than there were in 2024. And in 2024, there were 8% more people experiencing homelessness than there were the year before. We are going in the wrong
Um,
direction. And it's
wow.
just scary and sad. It just
Wow.
breaks my heart.
Yeah, I mean, for this increase out here to see this going on, I know our economy hasn't always been the best right now. And
Mm-mm.
we're struggling. And I'm optimistic. Hope everybody is, that it's going to turn around and it's going to be better. It's going to be an opportunity that we can do some things. We'll have more jobs coming. We'll have more people to employ. We see that the minimum wage got raised this year, which was an awesome addition. That we need to help with that. And we see more small business owners that, shout out to all the small business owners that's out there trying to make a change and add to make jobs available for them. But I want to just let y'all know, out there in the community, it's work out there that needs to be done. It's not always the best job, not always what we want to do, but it's able to continue to keep food on the table for it, and everything. So we want to just continue to announce and let folks know about job opportunities, Delaware labor and stuff, and really see who's hiring out there. I know people might get distracted. Like, I seen a for hire sign on there, but I go in there and they say they're not hiring no more. Maybe not at that day, maybe not that time, but keep reaching out, to it. And so, do y'all have anything for where y'all talk with folks about job placement or anything?
Yeah, we don't do a lot of we don't do job placement, to be perfectly honest.
Right.
That we do much more stuff around housing and getting people housing. I don't even know if I know where to recommend people go. Sorry, not my
Yeah.
expertise.
Yeah, and that's just a feel of that it might happen. And this is something I want to throw out there. Remember, we used to have that. It was a rental program that they used to provide assistance. I don't know if that's still available.
The rental assistance either is just going away in a couple months or just was depleted. I don't remember which. I
Wow.
forgot, but I know it's ending this year. I don't remember what month.
Wow.
And the federal government has not reinstated it. It's not coming back.
hmm So y'all heard all these things about this housing market, about what's going on with the homeless, what's happening with our population as we start to increase in there, and we need a change. We need something to change. We need somebody to go out there and take a stand and say, hey, I'm ready to make a change. I'm ready to do something different. I want to tell somebody what my vision is that we can do, because nobody has the perfect answer. Everybody has some good ideas and stuff. So May 22nd, mark your calendars, put it
Mm-hmm.
down, set your alarm day before. We're going to set up registration. We're going to talk about that. The day of housing, it's a wonderful event. If you don't know your local politicians or your council people or something like that, this is an opportunity to come out and just really support, find out what's going on in your community. I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Starr, and I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about it. And then we're going to break out about the registration, vendors that's going to be there, and start going from there. So tell us about that, Ms. Starr. I mean, this day of housing, is it brand new, or how long have we been doing this?
No, Day for Housing has been going on long before I got here, and I've been here about 3.5 years. It's been going on for a long time, but it's been growing. And sadly to say it's growing because the crisis is growing, right?
Mhm,
But what happens, which is a good thing that it's growing, is that legislators are starting to listen, right? So
mhm,
last year we had the most people ever, and for the first time they came out and they said, "What are all these people here for?" We got their attention, right? And so this year now we got to get them to say, all right, I know you're the housing people. What is it you want from me?
right.
Right. And you said something the other day, the other day, just now, but a few minutes ago, you said we all have a different picture of what might be. One of the things that I love about Day for Housing is that people come from all kinds of reasons to solve the same problem. So
Mhm,
some people are coming because they're veterans, and some people are coming because they're people with a disability, and some people are coming because they're senior citizens on a fixed income, and some people are coming because of mental health issues, and some people are coming just because they're minimum wage workers and there's nothing out there, right? People are coming for all kinds of reasons, and they have all kinds of experience. Some people are coming because they've experienced systematic racism, and right, they couldn't get an apartment. Racism isn't dead in Delaware. I wish it was, right?
mhm,
Maybe they're coming because they're trans and nobody would rent to somebody who's trans, right? So
mhm,
there's a lot of reasons why people come to the same place. But
mhm,
when you have all these people from all of these different places coming together, you see all of the important pieces that give you a picture of what we could have if we worked hard enough. And I don't believe it's all on elected officials. Like, there's things they need to do, but we
mhm,
need to do our job as citizens in a democracy to help them do their job, right?
mhm,
And our job is to tell them what they need to be doing. Our job is to hold them accountable when they don't do what we need to do. And sometimes you might be going into your legislator and saying, "Thank you, I really love what you did," right? If you're lucky.
mhm,
But they need to hear from us if there's going to be any kind of change. And Day for Housing is just a venue to do that. We're going to have over 20 sponsors
wow.
tabling. They're all people. Some of them help people who are homeless. Some of the people help people with development, all kinds of reasons. We have people from everywhere, from Sussex First Aid is one of our sponsors, Neighborhood Partners in Kent. We have people from up north, Family Promise, another great shelter. Like, we have people from all over the state, over 20 different sponsors. The Habitats, all three Habitats are our lunch sponsors. Scenair is our event sponsor. They are all going to be tabling and telling you how they work to solve these crises and how you might fit into their work. And if I was out there and a listener and think about coming to Day for Housing, I think about, what do I want? Who do I want to meet? And maybe I have business cards and I want to start sharing my business cards with people. Bring them. You know,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I have some literature. I might not have a table because I'm not a sponsor, but I can pass my literature and trade literature with people, right? I can talk to people about the work I'm doing. We have got to break down the silos in Delaware that separate us.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to find where we can work together to change things for good.
Wow, and that's amazing, because it's a wonderful event. I have to be honest, I attended for the first time last year. I had a wonderful time. It was a day full of interesting conversations. You met wonderful folks out there. You met so many different topics that you probably wouldn't even imagine happen out here. And that we face. And it's a struggle, folks, for some folks to really get through this and to get it to make sense, for that. This day of housing is I had to be honest, I moved to Kent County. I didn't know who my local representative was. If it wasn't for this day of housing, I probably still would have known, because, you had so many as we went to Lake Hall, and, we went through there and we walked through there and we had conversations, and we just discussed so many things. Vendors out there that we met, from veterans to housings to conversations. But the best part about it was, I think, Miss Starr, is just sitting down with the representatives and
Mhm.
having that honest, conversation. And they're telling you what they're dealing with, or where they stand with this, or their vote on there, because we don't never know what these folks are really intentions are until we get out there and we start asking these questions, till we start giving them understanding about what we're facing with homelessness. And the rent went up where I live, and now I got to make a decision. Is it going to be my medicine
Mhm.
or this? And how do I handle that? And if they put me out, where do I go, with all this stuff? And will people just take my stuff off the street?
And you know what? Anybody who has ever met with a representative had a first time.
Mm-hmm.
The only way you can get to a second, third time is by having a first time.
That's
So
it.
when you go to register, if you don't know your representatives, that's fine. You'll see on there, it'll ask you for the address, your home address. I only ask for your home address for one reason, because that's how I find out who your House representative and who your senator is. Once I record who your House representative and who your senator is, and I tell you who they are, I delete your address. I'm not looking to keep your address, right? All I want is to know, and I'll help you find it. And then you'll have it, if you register before May 15th,
Mm-hmm.
you'll have it on your name tag, and then you'll know it. And Delaware is really lucky. We're a small state, right?
Mm-hmm.
You go to a state like Pennsylvania, New York, California for sure, you don't get an appointment with your legislator. You go down there for advocacy date and maybe you see one of their aides, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we get to meet. Now, there's one or two that are going to say you need to meet with my aide, and that is good. That is not a bad thing. But most of the time, we meet with our legislators. That is so rare. And you're not going to get a lot of time with them. I want to manage expectations. You'll be lucky if you get 15 minutes. And you might walk in there with 6 people who want to talk for 15 minutes. Well, you can already hear me talking. I can't say hi in less than 15 minutes. So, it is hard to say something meaningful in 15 minutes. But what you want to do is get their attention. Really, when you go into that meeting and you meet your legislator, you want them to say to you, hey, can I have your business card? Or can you email me so we can get a cup of coffee next time I'm near home? Right?
Right.
So you can get their attention, and then you could sit down and have a real conversation. Or you want to hear their questions. Maybe they're asking you, I don't understand. I'm making this up. Maybe I don't understand this homeless bill of rights, right? I don't get it. And maybe you, as the person in there, don't know all the answers. You're going to have a report back sheet. You're going to write any questions they asked you didn't know the answer to. And I'm going to get those report back sheets, and I'm going to provide them and you with the answers to those questions. All of that is okay, because what you're ultimately doing is building a relationship.
Right.
Because then
Right.
maybe next time, if you have even if you don't agree on everything or anything, but you're polite and you're kind and you're respectful, next time you go in, that person would say, you know what, I've been thinking about what you said, and they're willing to have another conversation with you. That's how relationships are built, and that's what we got to do.
And we got to keep doing it. So as you see it at www.housingalliance.de.org/day-4-housing-2025. Y'all take that information, please register. Make sure you pass that on to your neighbors and everything so we can get you registered already for this, so we can start this process going. Once you're registered, Ms. Sonia, you probably can go ahead and let them know how the day works and get them going from there.
I will, but can I just tell you one thing beforehand about registration?
Mm-hmm.
So online registration, that URL closes end of business May 15th. May 15th. So you want to register before then. That's really important. Second thing is there's going to be 2 URLs on our, I agree, transparency is good. There's going to be 2 places on our website. A big one is going to be for May 22nd, but we're having a webinar May 15th in the afternoon that's going to give you all the last minute information for Day for Housing. So you want to, if you can, you want to be on the webinar too. So sign up for both, because they're 2 different places to sign up. One's a webinar and one's in person. But once you get to Day for Housing that day, so we're telling people to get there. It depends when your appointment's going to be, and you won't know until May 5th. I just started this week making appointments, so I won't know until May 15th many of the appointments. But you want to get to Day for Housing at least an hour to 90 minutes before your first appointment. And if your first appointment is between 11:30 and 2, you really want it to be 90 minutes, because that's where most of the appointments are, between 11:30 and 2. If it happens to be you have a 9:30 or you have a 3 o'clock, then you could just come an hour beforehand. But you're going to come, you're going to get in line, you're going to register, you're going to get your materials, your information, all of that kind of stuff. You're going to come if you have time to talk to me, where I'm going to lay out all the latest stuff, the newest bills that have been filed, what we're fighting for, answer last minute questions, all that kind of stuff. And then either you're going to go in right away to your legislation meeting, and maybe afterwards you'll come back out, or if you have some time, you'll do this. But a half an hour before your first appointment, you're going to go to this one place where you'll see they're going to have signs of all the different districts, and you'll hear somebody on a microphone. They're going to be, she promised me rap. I don't know if she's going to really do rap. I'm really hoping she does, because that'd be really fun. But she's going to say, Senate District 5, you need to get here now. And then give them the materials and send them in. You never want to be late for a legislator. So, like, there's going to be a lot of commotion and motion, but it's going to be exciting. And then when you have downtime in between appointments, before appointment, after appointment, then if you register by May 15th, you get a free lunch. So you can get a free lunch at the food truck we're going to have there. Or you could go around to the 20 different vendors and talk to them. We're going to be playing a bingo game. There's going to be a bingo game where you go around and you get a stamp. And if you get enough stamps, you get to be put in for a raffle, and then you get a surprise. I'm not going to tell you what it is. That spoils the surprise. There's just going to be so many opportunities. If I was doing this day, I'd also want to know who my neighbors are. Like, all the people in my district are going to go in at the same time. Well, it might be that I don't know them, but wouldn't it be cool to get to know the people in my district that are my neighbors, who think like I do and want to be part of the solution? Maybe we exchange addresses. Maybe we have a program in our district and you bring me in to do a program or something like that. This is an opportunity for us to brainstorm how we can work together with each other to do a better job.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful day. It's a full day. We just thank Ms. Starr and her team for putting this on, so it gives people the opportunity to have a voice out there in this community. So folks will know that we're serious about making a change with this housing for it. We want to not only be affordable, but I always look at people purchasing their own home after a while to where you can have some kind of stability right there. You want to be able to stabilize your life, and not wondering how much my rent's going up, how much it's going down. But once you get into a sense of normal living, which I call it, into being able to afford it, then you go into home ownership, which opens a whole different level there. And we wanna promote that out
Mm-hmm.
here. That not only did you convert from homelessness to finding a residence, maybe a room, to then an apartment, then owning your own condo, house, or wherever it is, to where you pass on that legacy to your kids or something, because we're coming to a time that we have to think beyond where we're at right now. So this day of housing is going to open some opportunities. If you're out there, landlords, y'all have a say so too. Y'all have an opinion. We like to hear those opinions. We like to know, some of the good, bad, and different. We want to find solutions to this and not just think of everything that didn't happen. For all my landlords out there, my heart goes out to you. You might have had some bad tenants and some folks. I want to change that mindset and get you to think that, hey, we're going to have better folks now because we're educating, we're putting stuff in place to where people won't be abusive or nonchalant on that. And we just going to think they had a bad cycle. They just had a bad time that day. Like anybody have had it. I know I didn't have bad days and everything. How I acted that day probably might not have been normal. It could have been frustrating for somebody or whatever. But guess what? I came back, I'm able to get back on the horse, and I'm able to think straight here. So this day of housing, as Ms. Starr said, know your neighbors, know who you're around, know their vision. I'm not trying to make it a political atmosphere. Well, I'm Republican to Democrat. No, but understand some things that go on in that community that, we can say, hey, how do you think we can solve this? Because everybody needs to share those ideas to see how it can happen.
I've testified for bills that Republicans put up, and I've testified for bills that Democrats pulled up, and I've testified for bills the Family Party put up. Like, it's not about the party. We're not partisan. It's about the solution and how we can work together, and everything you said, I couldn't, explanation points. We got to build generational wealth. We have got to get people into something to bequeath to their children and stuff like that. Absolutely 100% in all of that. But I want to say something to people who say nothing's going to ever change. Right? If we keep doing the same thing, they're right. Right? If we keep doing the same thing, nothing's going to change. Something's only going to change if we become the change we want to see. And I didn't write that quote, but it is true. If we aren't the change, if we don't change, if we don't do something different, then all we have to blame is ourselves.
That's right. That's right. And so, and Ms. Starr, tell us, are we going to have transportation? I know it's going to be parking, or tell us about that.
So transportation's a hard one. Public transportation to get to Dover is hard, and I know that. That's above my pay grade. You'll see when you go to sign up, it'll say, can you provide transportation? And it'll say, do you need transportation? I have a document I call the matchmaker document. It has the people who need transportation, the people who have transportation. I am doing my best to try to match them. I make no promises because some of it's going a little rocky. So I'm doing my best, but I can't make promises. If you are able to provide transportation for someone, please mark that because it'll make it easier for me. I wish there was better transportation to Dover in Delaware, but that's next year's fight.
Yeah, that's next. And that's something we're going to grow on. from
Right.
there, to where we can have that resource. If you come from Newcastle or Sussex, maybe we'll start looking for anybody that's transportation workers or drivers or something that, want to volunteer some time or something. We would love to have that for that opportunity, or somebody that has a bus or something, that we can have a conversation for as we plan for the next year. We're always trying to grow from one year to the next to make sure that we have stuff that we can add to it and get it done. But folks, May 22nd, 2025, as you see going across the bottom of the screen, that's how you register. Sign up. Let's figure out how we're going to get you out here. Let's look for a fun-filled day of a lot of questions to be answered. A lot of folks have a lot of questions. What's going on? Our economy has took a hit. They done laid off so many folks. We in a different situation than we were a year ago, and we don't want to see it get worse. We're looking for ways to get it better, so we can talk to these representatives. We can sit down and see if somebody has some ideas to put a stop to it, put some things going on in motion. But best of all, it's going to be a great time to network. You're going to see some folks there that it's going to help you, some things that they offer out here in Delaware you probably never even thought about. And guess what? It'll be your opportunity to go ahead and pass that on to the community. Let them know that, hey, this is still going on out here. You might want to attend this. You might want to see this how go to another event, and also talk to Miss Starr. They might have programs that they are doing and helping to educate people, because education takes us to the next level of success. So we go from elementary to high school, some to college, some go out there and build careers like so. But this is that opportunity here to build a relationship, as we talked about, to grow next time and to learn what's happening in Delaware. Because if it don't affect you now, we don't know down the road if it can affect your children and your family members or something. But we want to be proactive in this whole day of housing for it. And the biggest thing out here, are we going to build more houses? Is a big question for it. And
Hopefully, we're building apartments and condos and twins and things that will accommodate a lot of different economic levels, not just those for people, not just luxury housing.
And for all our investors out there, those that's looking to get in here, this would be a good opportunity for y'all to talk and understand some of the things that's happening out here in the community that you might can benefit from it. And go from there to help build up some of these houses that's abandoned. Somebody has some trades out there that they can be utilized to help this and for it. And I don't know, and I'm probably thinking, Habitat for Humanity probably can use some services and stuff to help with this as well. And Ms. Starr, anything, if they'll probably attend.
Habitats are sponsors. They're going to be there. They're going to have a table. Habitat, all three habitats, one in every county. All three of them are going to be there. So you can meet up with people and talk to them.
That is perfect. Habitat for Humanity's coming out to support sponsorship, all that good stuff. May 22nd. What time are we starting that day, Ms. Starr? Do you
So we'll be there by 8:30. But it depends when your first appointment is. That's why it's important to come to that May 15th webinar, because then you'll find out when your first appointment is, and then you'll be able to know what time to get there. So it just depends when that first appointment is, either about 60 to 90 minutes before.
Yeah, and it's going to be a packed weekend anyway, as we're going to go to the Day of Housing. And then, as we talked about last week, we're going to have the military basketball league come in down in Philadelphia as well and stuff. It's a free event as well that we want to make sure that everybody get to attend, get to do something around the little holiday weekend we're going to have. But the Day of Housing is going to start it off early that morning. Come meet your neighbors, your friends, the folks that you always wanted to know, and see what we can do.
Say hi to me.
And say hi to Ms. Star. Ask her the questions, find out how we can help. But Ms. Star, if you have any closing remarks before we go, it's an honor to have you again. I appreciate every time you take the time to share this knowledge with us so we can talk about this housing and what it's going to do and as we go forward.
Thank you. I always appreciate the opportunity, the dialogue, the conversation, and the access to your many viewers. Day for Housing is the beginning of a full year of advocacy, and I look forward to seeing everybody and anyone who could be there. So thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Folks, this is another episode. We had a wonderful time. You had great information. May 22nd, 2025. May 15th is, go ahead and don't forget to sign up for first, so we know the order of how we're going to progress in this thing. And then we go forward. But I'm looking to see everybody out there to have a conversation, to talk, and just to have a good time. But this is Johnnie Bazemore with Creative Financing. Look forward to seeing you next week. And thank you so much for attending. Y'all have a great evening.